All right. So, Davis, I gave you a very specific assignment as well. In the interest of being balanced and providing the full range of analysis, I asked you to give me the absolute best case scenario for the Calgary Flames this year from a standings perspective. So basically, the maximum amount of points they could accumulate, but that's somewhat realistic. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be back on the show. And summer's coming to a close, which always sucks. But what the best part of this time of year, along with football being back and postseason baseball, is that the hockey season will be upon us soon, and it's going to be a very interesting season for the Calgary Flames. Very interesting team last year, and in keeping with your theme of the worst likely outcome and the best likely outcome, I feel like there's a lot of questions about this team. We really don't know where they're going to end up. But I did watch the last episode with Jeff, and he says he is the eternal doomer. I feel like in our grouping, I am as close to as an optimist as you'll find. There's a resounding amount of negativity amongst the fan base, but me being a Blue Jays / Bears fan, there's nothing that this team can do to hurt me that hasn't already been done to me. So hopefully, I'll be able to prove a counterpoint to what Jeff had established and paint out the best possible scenario that this team can achieve.
Yeah, man, that's exactly why I chose you for this. So I'm like I said, I think I couldn't think of a better person to do this part of the analysis. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say and paint, maybe be the ray of sunshine and paint things in a positive light.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really enjoyed, first off, before we get started, I really enjoyed the episode with Jeff. I think he did a great job of breaking down the points on the other side. I'll provide similar argumentation. I actually liked how he broke it down into 3 key prongs, which I'll be doing as well, albeit slightly different.
I might as well rename this to Burning Prongs with Thomas.
Burning Prongs with Thomas. The one thing I'm going to do different is I'm going to say what the best case is out the hog, and then I'll kind of establish the evidence there. So,
all right, yeah. Sure.
For me, the best case scenario is 97 points for the Calgary Flames, and it is a playoff appearance.
One more point than last year.
One more point than last year. Last year's group. So at the outset, I'm going to say a lot of these things that might seem a little bit crazy, but if we held this show last year, and I came on this show and said that the Calgary Flames had 96 points, you would have laughed at me.
Absolutely, yeah.
If I said that Nazem Kadri was going to score, I think, 34 goals last year, you would have laughed at me. And if I would have said Dustin Wolf was the runner-up to the Calder, I don't think that would have gotten a laugh, but that would have been a bold statement, to say the least, considering they didn't even know, where he was going to be, and maybe, I think, really started as the 1B guy this year. So some of these statements that I'm going to make are going to seem a little bit outlandish, but I'm proving the case that with a reasonable doubt this could happen. I'm not going to say anything too crazy, but really what I'm looking at is this team is going to be one better in this scenario than the team was last year. And thinking of one of my favorite movies, Moneyball, how does that happen? We have to look at what was created last year, aligning with their finish, and how do we get there, but a little bit better. The second point I'll make, which might be a little bit controversial, is the Calgary Flames last year were a very unlucky team. They had 96 points and missed the playoffs. The whole narrative, I think, from last season completely changes if they do miss the playoffs. The last time a team had 96 points and missed the playoffs was a decade ago with the Boston Bruins, and there's been no team in the Western Conference that has ever had 96 points and missed the playoffs. Any one of those overtime games, they're in the playoffs, but it really was an interesting season when you look at the outlying numbers behind it of how did this team get there. So looking at that, we have to assume that the team last year, based on the struggles with their goal scoring, their great goaltender play, and 2, that they're bringing back effectively the same group, the positive and negative regression. How is this team the same and just a touch better to get to that 97-point mark? So we're going to start out the first thing in goal. And this is, I think, the biggest thing. Everybody knows it's Dustin Wolf. He just signed a new contract. This guy, I think, is effectively the new face of this franchise, and had an incredible season with the Calgary Flames. He was second in Calder voting. I'm obviously biased, but I think you could make a very strong argument that he should have been first. And I think this is a rare situation in which you have a guy that the numbers don't do it. The numbers don't do him justice. If you look at here, he was 29, 16, and 8. He had a 910 save percentage and a 264 goals against average. That, I think, underserves. When you watch this guy play, he single-handedly won this team games. There was one game that I saw him play. I forget who they were playing. I think it was I forget who it was. He single-handedly won this team the hockey game. I think they got outshot like 43-18, and he was the reason why, not only on shots, but high danger chances. So if this team is anywhere near to that projection, he has to be great again. Now, I don't think we talked about regression, and Jeff made the point of past rookie goaltenders. I don't think he needs to be at those numbers. I think he could regress a little bit, and this team could still make the playoffs. But it does have to be pretty close. He still has to have a really good year, a year that confirms the dream of Flames fans that they found not only a franchise goalie, but an elite goalie. And I think even with that regression, that's the first point.
It might be like regression in like raw stats, but it's effectively the same performance.
Yes, except the same performance.
Yeah, which I mean, like the traditional goalie stats, I like hardly even try and look at anymore. I'm more of an environment goal saved above expected guy. So if his like goal saved above expected per start is about the same as it was last year, it probably would take that or a slight improvement from that.
Yeah. Another consideration is he's gonna have more starts, and if he can maintain that level of play and get more starts. Now, Dan Vladar was good. He had some bad outings, but he also put up really good numbers. This was a very strong goaltending group, but when we look at goals allowed, they were 15th. They were still middle of the road. So it isn't like this team was like top 5 in goals allowed. Granted, the goalies were really good with a below average defensive core, but this team was still 15th in goals allowed. They were league average in goals allowed. And Vladar had games where, he struggled in too. He had games where he was great. If Dustin Wolf gets more starts, those overall Calgary goaltender numbers could also improve. Now, the other consideration is we have to think of who's going to be backing up Dustin Wolf. That guy will also have to be good, whether it's Devin Cooley. Who's Logan Cooley? Logan Cooley's the forward on the Mammoth. Whether it's Devin Cooley or this new Russian kid, they're going to have to be good too. They don't need to put up what Dan Vladar did last year, but they can't be a complete tire fire for this team to go. I think this is a reasonable situation. Jeff walked through these goalies like Matt Murray, UC Saros, which are good examples, and Nedeljkovic, and I forget who other
Swayman, Skinner were two other ones.
Skinner.
Yeah.
The point is valid, is a good percentage, but the reasoning is a little bit flawed because not all rookie goalie classes are created equal. Some of those classes you really don't see a good rookie goalie. In effect, they're just a backup. So comparing Dustin to some of these guys and looking at that sample size, I can see the point he's trying to make, but it is a little bit different year to year. There aren't a lot of rookie goalies that come in. And
every rookie goalie is not created equal.
Yeah, and sometimes there's no rookie goalies that break out and take the role that Dustin did. So that is the first.
That's the first thing that will have to occur for max points.
Now the big thing is taking a look at the defensive core too, and potential rebuttal would be Rasmus Andersson. Under this scenario, I'm accounting that Rasmus Andersson will be traded. Defensively, this team has to be a little bit better, I think, to make this happen. There's obviously not a lot of depth there. We'll get into number 89, future number 19 in a little bit. But I still think Dustin Wolf.
Oh, is that breaking news?
We'll find out. I think Dustin Wolf, you can say he can have a slight regression, and this team still can have 97 points, assuming that he gets more starts and assuming that the backup goalie puts serviceable average numbers.
I think my only pushback on that would be that this team won a lot of one-goal games last year. And so what was so impressive about Dustin Wolf's season was not that he was just playing well, but He's playing well in big games, like cute, like games where they needed him to be that good. And if there is a slight regression, then it doesn't take a lot for those 1-goal games to turn from 2 points to 1 to 0. So I think for max points scenario, he has to be as good or better than last year.
Now, you said the thing that's interesting about 1-goal games, and I think that's a bit of recency bias because the team won a lot of 1-goal games down the stretch, but they still were 11-11 in 1-goal games. And in fact, they were 5-12 in overtime games and 5-2 in the shootout. So they did win a lot of 1-goal games, but they also lost a lot of 1-goal games too as well. I think there were a lot of wins late and they were able to do it, but this isn't a team that was like the 2014-2015 Flames that I forget they had a crazy record in 1-goal games. So on the surface, it seems like they won those 1-goal games close, but really, again, they were league average in 1-goal games. So I think this team gets discounted a lot about how, I guess, lucky or how close their games were. I think really, they didn't get blown out a lot and they didn't blow teams out. They played, a very grind you down hockey game. So I would push back and say he can get a little bit worse within a point, just because the overall goalie numbers are close to league average. I think it's just how it skews and how optics kind of defy things. Because really, if we look at that OT record that they were 5-12 in overtime, the Flames aren't built for an overtime team. I'm not expecting them to be a team that has a win record in overtime, but we also know there's a lot of luck. There was even that one game against, I think, St. Louis where it was a questionable call. There could have been 3 or 4 of those games that you flip the other way, and we're talking about a team that has 100 points last year.
But I think in those games you need Dustin Wolf to be good, to be really good. So, in those games, if they're going to play in a lot of 1-goal games specifically again, you need him to be good, because if he's worse, they'll just lose an inordinate amount of 1-goal games. Yeah.
And I think this is really where, if the numbers slip, the games where those numbers slip. Because I think you're right. He made a lot of clutch saves when he needed to at the right time. Really, there weren't any few games where he, just didn't have it and got out of run. I think there was 1 or 2. If those goals come over there, and not in those high leverage chances, that's good. And overall, that's a really good thing that you want to see from a goalie, that he's not hot and cold, that he is consistent all the time. So that only speaks to his development.
Timely saves.
And, I think the concern about defense, but we'll get into that. It's my third prong.
Yeah, for sure. So what was your first prong was goaltending as well. What would your second prong be then?
Is goal scoring. So Jeff pointed out that this team couldn't score goals.
Yeah.
They were 28th, which is actually surprising because, if you look offensively at this team's stat sheet, I mean, it's crazy. Aside from no guy had over 70 points. You have Kadri at 67, Huberdeau at 62, and that is it. Which in today's NHL, I mean, if this is 2002, then maybe we have something here. But it's quite significant. I mean, they couldn't score goals. Not only they couldn't score goals, they didn't look lethal, really. There were some games where flat out offensively, I mean, they were looking like maybe a World Junior team from Latvia, which isn't a bad thing because sometimes they can play well. The goal scoring will have to improve, absolutely. And this is I think, the biggest point there. The fact that they were able to do this and still come so close is also quite impressive. They also were very timely. I think they got contributions from a lot of guys in the lineup. So while they didn't have, top scoring, they got timely goals from people that you wouldn't really expect. But this team has to have more goal scoring. So where does that come from? And this is where Jeff kind of talked about positive and negative regression. I'm also going to say in this statement, I expect Nazem Kadri to regress. I think he's going to negatively regress. I don't think he's going to score 30 goals this year.
Yeah, even in a best case scenario.
That's not reasonable.
Yeah.
Michael Backlund, I'm not feeling too great about him either. Blake Coleman, at best, maybe negative.
Yeah.
All these things can be true, and I still think this team can achieve it. But really, it comes down to 3 key players in my mind. Firstly, is our 2 newly extended players, Matt Coronado and Connor Zary, Coronado showcased like a sniping ability that he can be our preeminent sniper. He's going to have to make that next step here, continue to finish. I mean, watching this guy too as well, he had 24 goals, but there were a lot of misses there. There were a lot of ones that he hit the post. They looked. I think this guy could be a 30-goal scorer. The shooting percentage was 13.3,
which that's probably about where I would expect it to be. You know, if he has a really good year, it's probably going to be higher than that.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good shooting. I'm not saying it's a lucky one, but it's pretty good shooting. It's a shooting percentage you would expect of a good shooter. But if he has a somewhat lucky year, then I could easily see it being higher. So
yeah. So you're wanting 30 goals from him at least.
Yeah.
He needs to score these goals. He needs to fill. The goals have to come from somewhere, and they might come from a guy like Connor Zary, who also signed an extension. In this scenario, we talked about injuries, which is removed from this, and I think that was a big point that the Flames got really they stayed healthy, which was a big portion of where they were where they ended up last year, and I think they have to have similar level of health. Like this team is 1 or 2 injuries away from really being a tough spot. But Connor Zary is a guy that, you know, was affected by the injury bug, and you know he's shown really good flashes. If we've seen what he can do in a small sample size, this is a guy that really can inject offense, not just with scoring, but his playmaking ability, generating offense. He's also scrappy. He can play both ways. He's a very good hockey IQ. You know, he knows where to be. So that's another guy. These 2 young guys, you know, the Flames have made commitments to them. They've said, okay, this is our young core. The Flames often get blasted in terms of developing their young core, but they found 2 players here that they drafted in the mid-first round. Both of them look at least like mid-first round players. They need to show that they are and that they can do that. So in terms of where he needs to be scoring, like I'm looking more for driving playmaking ability. They also need goals from him, but he's another guy. The third guy is Igor Sharangovich, which again showed what he can do. He's another guy. It's tough really to take a look, kind of an enigma, because he started out, you know, he was similar to last year, and then he completely lost it to the point where he wasn't even earning time, and rightfully so, in the lineup. And then near the end, we saw a flash. So which Igor are we going to get? Jeff pointed about his age, that he's getting a little bit older. I think he can find it again. I think he's scored.
He's not young, but he's not old, but he's not young.
Yeah,
he's in that age group.
Yeah, if Naz can score 35, Igor can get back. He's your other sniper. He's where the goals have to come from. Get back to that season a year ago where really, you know, he was really lethal with the puck, and you know every time the puck was on a stick, especially in a tight game or overtime, you know he could put it past the goaltender. So those are the 3 guys really on the goal scoring side. The rest of the team, you know, they're going to have to make up for those aging veterans. I'm not expecting anything from Jonathan Huberdeau. If anything, he'll be the same. And we've seen potential negative regressions from Calgary, Coleman, and Backlund. But I think with those key young pieces, again, that was 28. I think what is the best case that this team can get to? I think it's exactly what you said, is 20th. I think if this team gets to 20th in goal scoring, with with those guys producing that offense and slight regressions on those other players, there's a chance that we could get there.
Yeah, that would turn a lot of other 1-goal games in the positive direction.
In the other way. And you're looking at guys like Morgan Frost too as well, hoping that Farabee can turn around. And really looking at Mackenzie Weegar to take a step as a leader of this team as well. We discussed, you know, he might be an Olympian. He also can generate off his time, really working on that side of the game to help out where he can. So that's point 2. It can't get worse than last year. Like it was 28th, which is crazy that there were 4 teams worse. But I think reasonably, with Coronado, Zary, and getting Sharangovich back on form, this is a team that could be 20th. And I think if they do that and they get even that slight regression in Dustin Wolf, there's a team that get to 97 points.
I think the big ones, like your 3, so it's kind of like you're banking on the guys you mentioned, their positive regression outweighing the negative regression from the guys you mentioned. But I think the bigger thing for more goals would be Frost and Farabee. They were acquired for a reason.
Yeah.
they got over here and they are shooting. You can look it up. They're shooting because I've done this myself. Their shooting percentages were in the tank. Like they were very unlucky since they got over here. They probably need to play better as well. But I think if you were looking for more goals for the best case scenario, that's exactly who I'm looking at.
And I'd agree. Those would be my secondary guys. I think there are two interesting points, and they kind of put it two spectrum. I think Frost is a guy. It was a little bit unlucky.
I liked his play.
He played really well.
Farabee less so.
Farabee was really concerning. I mean, he's a guy that's really going to step it up for what they're paying, and to bring a little bit more a physical element too as well. But the guy needs to do more offensively. He doesn't need to be like the top one, but Frost is another guy. I think on the power play he looked really, really good. And just needs to get more lucky. Just watching the games, having watched that team a lot last year. Like he played really well. He would get robbed or he'd hit the post. Like I'm not as worried for him, but I think Farabee is the one that really needs to make the step up.
Yeah, and I also never like to make a grand conclusion on a guy that was traded mid-season, especially east to west. So I think if if in this best case scenario it does happen, I think those two guys have really good years for the Flames. So it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It gets to our third pick, which is the multiplier, and that is Zane Parekh.
Yeah.
So you could say what I said about the offense, saying that's not enough. How does a team get to 28 and 20? I just don't see it if you're expecting these old guys to regress more and these young guys, and even Frost Farabee, that's still not enough to get from 28 to 20, which I think they'll have to be to score to get 97 points, assuming that we're going to see regression. Because Dustin Wolf's numbers, I don't think are going to be as good as there. I don't think they can be if he's going to start as much as he is. That's Zane Parekh. They need Zane to be the guy that we want him to be. And I think this is a guy that defensively will have some things to work on. But if he has the year that he needs to have, I think at the very minimum, he has to have a season where he's nominated for the Calder, maybe a season like Hudson where he actually wins. He is a guy that can create offense, not only to the established players on his team, but also by himself. So if he makes the team out of camp, which I think he will, if he stays out healthy, he picks up on it and kind of adjusts to the NHL game quickly, I think this is the guy that can really push this team over the edge offensively and get them to be a playoff team. It'll be interesting to see, where they'll put him in the lineup or in terms of which pairing. They might, kind of have a veteran hand in Joel Hanley or maybe Kevin Ball. I don't really see him playing with Weegar. I think you want to maybe stagger them out. But especially in the scenarios, since that they'll trade Rasmus Andersson, he'll have to be at that level. Because Anderson will be traded at this point. And even this scenario, I don't think it's going to be a hockey trade. I think they will trade him for young guys and for picks. And if this team is supposed to make the playoffs, that's a big hole defensively. So Zane will have to fill that gap. It's not going to be any of these seven defensemen. So he has to have a great rookie season, I think. Be a Calder, a guy that's nominated for the Calder. That's going to sound bold, but if you look at what he did in Saginaw last year, he broke records that, haven't been broken in, I think, Ryan Ellis in 2008 and just Bobby Orr with a bunch of goal scoring there. So I think he is a guy that the Flames do have goal scoring troubles, but people forget that defensemen really, especially defensemen like him, can generate stuff offensively.
Yeah, this is one of the first things I talked about on Instagram this year was I was looking at basically all of Zane's best comparables, everything that this franchise wants him to be. How old were they in their, the scene in the year they broke onto the scene? And he's pretty much the exact same age as Quinn Hughes and Zach Werenski were in their rookie seasons. And both of those guys had excellent rookie years, both by traditional counting stat measures and by and more advanced analytical numbers. For this best case scenario to hit, Zane has to have one of those seasons.
Yeah.
So
and you look what Hudson did in Montreal. It's a very
he was a year old.
Yeah, a year older. But I think that's the type of year you're looking for.
Yeah.
And even the Flames this year, they had more points than that team last year. I think again back to the luck and 96 points on making it. So those are the three things. Really, it's simplified, but it's a Moneyball situation. They lost Giambi, Daming, Isringhausen. They overperformed with the guys that they found, a similar thing has to happen. You need to account with the regression that we will see in goal. Like, I'm not going to say here that the numbers of Calgary Flames goaltenders, both Wolf and whoever's backing up, will be better. It will be worse, but you need to limit that as much as you can with the kind of below average defensive help and losing Rasmus Anderson at the trade deadline. You have to offset that by getting to 20th and 20th most in goals for. How to do that? The young guys need to come out. The Frost Farabee, as you mentioned, and then Zane Parekh as being the multiplier and kind of the X factor that gets them there. Looking at nothing too intangibles, looking at competition. I mean, the division seems more or less the same, I'd say.
I think it's really bad. I think the division's really bad.
It's tough really to evaluate. I think the Sharks will be better. I don't really see that for the Ducks. And then you got the Knights and Edmonton too as well, which I don't see them being in the regular season any better. And I think Vancouver is your team that is going to be probably regressing the most. But really, I think it's close to the same. So the schedule more or less should be the same. They have a tough schedule in October. I think that's a challenge for them too. I think part of the reason why that they were able to do what they did last year is they had a hot start, and when you have that, you don't stop believing. They have to, I think, be 500 by the end of November, got through that tough schedule, and then you can start to believe again. Another intangible that you have is the locker room. I mean, this is, some of the players have said this. Many of them said this is the closest group of guys that they've ever played with. And remember, we were talking about this earlier, and you said, well, maybe they were that close when they were winning games. And if they start losing, that locker chemistry goes away. I would say maybe they were winning games because they had a close locker room. Like, this is a comfortable group with each other. They're focused. They've had they're online. They watch, they read people's tweets. They want to prove the fans wrong. They know that they've been disrespected, not only by the national media, but their own media. And I think this is a group that, if I was a player on the team, it'd be agonizing to be that close. They have a lot to prove. They don't care what people are saying online. They don't care about the tank about McKenna. This is a team that not only wants to do that and make the playoffs, but actually believes in themselves and think that they can do that. And I think that counts for a lot, because at the end of the day, we can talk as much as we want about stats. There are intangibles. It is a human game. And I do believe things like chemistry and coaching do play a factor. And, we saw what it could do last year. And I think it's actually a benefit of bringing back the same group. There's not a lot of distractions, and it'll be very interesting to see. So that's my approach. I'll take any other questions, but I think if they do that, they're 97 points and they'll be in.
So if in your best case scenario, you have them getting into the playoffs, well, then your job isn't done there. And I think that's a reasonable best case scenario because they were so close last year. So best case scenario, how far do they go in the playoffs?
I don't think that this team can win a playoff series. I'm not going to say that. If they did, I'd be stretching my logic a little bit too far. I mean, if anything, you're looking at the 22 Dallas Stars. I mean, you saw what Jake Ottinger did, and they still lost. They're going to have a tough playoff opponent. I mean, that's where really, cracks will start to show, because you're going to have Dustin Wolf that's played more games than he's ever played before. They're really going to have to wear teams down, and they'll probably in that situation be either a wildcard team. Maybe they could still be at 97 and be third in the Pacific, but they're going to be the underdogs in that series. Crazier things that have happened. I'm not going to say they're going to make the second round. I do think they'd put up a fight. I think they'd lose in 6. I think the Flames are a tough out, a team that you don't want to play in the postseason, just for the fact that they wear you down for the next one. But I think that is a reasonable ceiling for the team. I think if I said that this team could win a playoff series, that's a little bit too far even for this optimist. But I think it's reasonable to say that they could make the first round and be a tough out.
Yeah, I mean, if you think they can win a playoff series, you're effectively saying that you think they're one of the 8 best teams in the league in your best case scenario, which I think would be a bridge too far for me.
Yeah, and teams can get lucky and upset teams, especially with good goaltending. You look at the teams like the New York Islanders that made back-to-back conference finals. Those are teams that, you look on the roster, you're like, oh my God, how is this a top 4 team in the NHL? Probably not, but they were really well coached and they knew their identity. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that they'd be a first round exit. But again, a tough out. I don't think they're a team that's going to roll over easily, but I think that's my projection in terms of finish. I'm not going to say they're going to win a playoff series.
That's fair. Yeah, so the 2022 Dallas Stars.
Yeah. Which, if you remember, as Flames fan, being on a contending team was just awful to play. I mean, watching those games,
it was just awful to play.
I went to Game 2 and Game 7, and I literally thought that Jake Oettinger, it was in like their one game that he shut out. I believed even in Games 5 and 6 that the Stars were going to win the series. It looked like a foregone conclusion. But I think that's kind of what you would look as a good comparable.
Yeah, I have one question actually.
Yeah.
That's come to mind. So, in your best case scenario, when do you think Rasmus Andersson? Because you said in your best case scenario he would get traded. When do you think that would happen?
Yeah, so if I'm presenting this case, it would have to be at the trade deadline because you maximize him being on your team. I don't think this can happen if you trade him earlier in the season. I think the team's result in 97 points is because Rasmus is on this team for the longest point in time. If he was traded at the offseason, this would be a much different conversation because we would be looking at, okay, Zane really has to be this guy for the full season. And then you got to have someone, Solovyov or someone come in defensively. So I think in this scenario, he still gets traded at deadline, but I'm going to say he doesn't come back for roster players either. I think they honor their commitment. It's young prospects and picks. Maybe I'll concede they trade Andersson. Let's say they're in a playoff spot. They trade Andersson. Maybe they make a depth acquisition. They surrender a third or maybe even a second, get an extra forward in there.
Yeah.
As a give back to the guys in the locker room.
Yeah.
This team won't have Rasmus Andersson on it. I bet you a steak dinner on that. This team won't have Rasmus Andersson on it past the trade deadline. He will get traded. But I think it would have to be the deadline in this scenario.
Yeah. Well, the reason I wanted to ask you that is because someone I listen to and read their stuff that I really like, Robert Munich of Red Mile Rundown, he came up with this theory, and it's maybe the Flames' plan here is that they're keeping Raz for the first 3 quarters of the year so that they can shelter Zane, and then once Zane's a little bit more comfortable at the NHL level after kind of being sheltered for 3 quarters of the year, they'll trade Raz at the trade deadline and then kind of start to play Zane more from then. And I think in a best case scenario, all you really need is the combination of 3 quarters of the season of Rasmus Andersson and Zane Parekh to basically be better than Rasmus Andersson with a foot injury last year, which isn't completely far-fetched.
Yeah,
it's not a guarantee or anything, but it's within the realm of possibility.
And there's a lot of mentorship there too as well. I think this is Zane can learn a lot from Rasmus, and it's kind of a passing of the torch of a guy who has been great for the Flames, who during his tenure, he's been the top defenseman for a lot of his time here. And it's passing the torch to hopefully the next guy. And I think, that is a big, important piece in Zane's development too, that he's able to learn to be able to achieve the results on the ice.
Mm-hmm. Final question for me that I can think of right now was in your best in this thought exercise, did it at all occur to you that maybe like 2 years ago when Zary was called up, is there a potential player from the Wranglers that maybe gets called up and then either injects some offense or plugs a hole on defense? Was that at all considered in your best case scenario?
Not in my best case scenario. It doesn't really appear anybody at this time is there just yet. I feel like a couple guys are close. Grindon is a guy that I think maybe the year after could he see some time? I don't think this season. You have Rory Cairns, who's another guy that showed he can be offensively, but again, he's more of a guy that you put on the fourth line along with Stromgren. Bushevich is another one. There's nobody real standalone guy. It would definitely be an asset, but even this scenario, I haven't adjusted of anybody at this time. Suniev is one that we saw what he did in the in that last game. A lot of Flame center Heinen doesn't particularly wow me. If I could choose one guy that it kind of is kind of a deep pocket, it might be Sam Morton. I think he's a guy that really has looked good in the AHL and while he's not going to be, that guy that, puts up a lot of numbers, I think he's a guy that could fill in and make this team a lot better. He's a guy that I think plays the game well both ways and could potentially be the guy. But it is tricky because I don't think there's any Flame aside from Zane Parekh there that can make that jump just yet. But I think next season there's definitely a few candidates.
Yeah. I think in like a best case scenario, I think like a young left-handed defenseman from the Wranglers just steps up and beats out all of the plug seventh or left-handed defensemen they have. So like just to throw a name out there, like Solovyov steps up and becomes like a pretty good, like analytical kind of darling second pair left-handed defenseman. Again, we're like,
and the depth will be important when Rasmus is gone. Like there will be, there is a thing. You can only run with a good top, like that third pairing. It is key. I mean, you look at a lot of games, it's the goals that are scored is that third pairing. You need them to be steady. So I think, it would be great if someone would step up. I'm not counting on it. I think it has to be this group, the guys that are in the room, but we'll find out. I hope I'm wrong.
I haven't listened back to me and Jeff's conversation yet. Did I give Jeff the opportunity to take the mask off and actually predict what he thinks will happen?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Okay, I saved it, but I let him pick it. I can't remember if that was on or off air, so I'll let you do the same now. Putting this all aside, what do you actually think will happen?
We'll take the mask off, and for the viewers at home, I hope I've convinced you because I'm going to do an ultimate John Cena heel turn. This isn't going to happen. I think this team not only is not always worse, but is tremendously worse. Not nearly as bad as Jeff is making out to be. I think. And
to be fair, Jeff is
the worst case. Yeah. But I forget where Jeff. I forget where Jeff said. I think we're around. I predict this team to be picking in the top 10 in the NHL draft. And
I think that's what he said too. Like somewhere
in the middle. I mean, these are extreme positions, and the most likely is somewhere along the middle. The reasoning being is the goalie regression. I expect it to not just be a little worse. It is going to be a little worse. Now, I still think Dustin Wolf is going to be great, but they're not going to nearly get the backup goaltender that they need. I mean, Devin Cooley had a great first half for the Wranglers and then completely fell off a cliff. And we really don't know with this. I don't know his name. This Russian kid,
Ivan
Prostetov. Wolf could even have a great year, but it's a two goalie.
Even a great goalie, you need like 30 good starts from your backup.
You need 25 to 30 good starts in your backup. And whoever it is Dan Vladar was a great backup, a great B guy. They're going to be near the bottom too. So it's not even that Dustin Wolf will regress. It's the goaltending as a whole will regress. But as a matter of fact, Wolf will play more games. And, he might have the same, performance. But defensively, this team has leaks. If they trade Anderson before, which I think they could do, trade him before the deadline, which completely negates my pitching the best case. But if they do trade him before the deadline, this team has serious defensive holes. And, Dustin Wolf could do a lot of things right. I don't think it's nearly going to be there. I still think he is the guy. I think he's going to be an elite goaltender in this league. But to a point, you need defensive guys to back you up. And if Anderson does get traded before the deadline, it could be pretty tough on him there. The other point is with the goal scoring. I think this team will score more goals. I don't think it can't get worse than it was last year. Making the leap from 28th to 20th will be tough. I mean, you still need Nazem Kadri to be really, really good, and Blake Coleman to be to kind of return to form. And those young guys, all that stuff is true. I think they're going to make a step up. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think probably 24th to 25th. I think I could see this team in goals.
Goal scorer.
And Zane, it's tough to say. He's the big unpredictable one. I think he will make the team out of camp, but the NHL is tough to fully break into, and it'll be interesting to see. The other point is the factor where I think they'll be taught. I think they'll be picking probably 8th is what I'll say right now. Is injuries too as well. They got lucky with injuries, and if we're looking at this realistically, I think you have to factor that in. And if any of their top guys get hurt, especially Dustin Wolf, things fall apart quickly. And even with him, you want to be smart. If you're the Calgary Flames, you don't want to lean on him too much. With this team having another reason why they'll be picking the top 10, if this team doesn't have the hot start like they did last year, it's going to be tough to get out of there. And if this is a team where you're in January, you're 10 points out of a playoff spot, in the name of the long-term plan, you give Wolf less starts. You don't want to see him hurt. You don't want to kind of hurt his mental well-being by having him get shelled every night. You throw Cooley and Fetestov in there. I should probably learn his name. There a little bit more, and then you kind of see where things go. If they're in that situation, you could look at potential other pieces going, like a Blake Coleman or a Nazem Kadri, and then it also, because there's a lot of games at the trade deadline. This is another thing. If they trade Coleman or if they trade Kadri too as well, which I think is in the realm of possibility. I'm not going to say that it's over 50%, but I'll probably say 40% either Coleman or Kadri is traded at the deadline.
If they're out of it.
Yeah. Then post deadline, we saw this in 2024, I believe, where they kind of sold the deadline, and then the team effectively fell to, I think they were, what did they get saying? They go ninth. Yeah. I think that's within reasonability. So are they going to be a team that can effectively tank for McKenna unless you hire Jeff Gillooly to break Dustin Wolf's kneecaps, which I hope you Flames fans don't want. It's not happening. I don't think this is a top 5 team. Bottom 5 team. Sorry, I don't think they're picking the top 5. They're too good, but I think they will be picking in the top 10, and I think that gives you a reasonable chance. Like last year, they need a lightning strike for Gavin McKenna. They have some odds not only to pick in the top 3 that maybe you get lucky there. This team, and even if they go 82-0, you still only have there's a 4 out of 5 chance you're not going to have Gavin McKenna. So I think for me as a fan, I've been much aligned as the optimist and wanting to win every game possible. I'm more concerned about development. I want to see meaningful strides from the young guys, Wolf, Zary, Coronado, and Zane. All that stuff I think can happen. We can feel good about ourselves, and this team can still be picking in the top 10. And that's where I think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to be a mushy middle team. I think reasonably with the personnel change, especially Rasmus Andersson, and that tough schedule is really underrated. There's a good chance that this team is 5 or 6 games under 500, if not worse, by the end of November. And that might really set the trajectory of their season.
Yeah. It's going to come fast.
Yeah. Especially their start.
Yeah.
Edmonton, Vancouver, St. Louis. I think they play Vegas twice in October and Winnipeg twice. I mean, we'll know pretty, like, in October is tough because teams are still figuring out, but we'll know pretty early. Like once we start hanging up the Christmas lights, we'll know who the Calgary Flames are. And then it really will depend on how we do next. If Rasmus Andersson isn't traded and kind of the decisions that they make there.
I think, that cuts both ways. Like, I think a big reason why this team was in it last year was because they got off to a good start. And I think the reason they got off to a good start was because they were playing like playoff hockey in October while everyone else was playing shinny. Yeah. So it's tough to play so many difficult teams right out of the chute, because if you lose those games, you're behind the 8 ball. But also, like, if you bring the intensity right away, that might be an opportune time to play better teams that aren't. Yeah,
especially the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, they're slow starts.
They always slow start.
Yeah. I would love if they could go in both those teams. If the Flames could be 2-0 after those two, I'm not too concerned about results. Whatever happens, it's Murphy's Law. Whatever can happen will happen. I really hope we win those first 2 games. That would be a lot of fun to see, especially if McDavid isn't signed to win that. So if you are on Team Tank, I hope that you are cheering for the Flames, at least for those 2. I'll give you the other 80, but
2 and 80.
Yeah, I hope you're cheering for the opening night, because that would be pretty sweet.
Well, thanks, Davis. I feel like You outlaid a pretty good case here. I enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate all the hard work you put into this.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to be back. It's going to be an interesting year. I really don't know what's going to happen. That's the exciting point. Is it could really be any of these scenarios. So.
Hey, if we knew it was going to happen, we wouldn't watch.
Yeah, exactly. So. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right.